So you might know or you might not know, but I'm actually the Montreal city manager for Go Running Tours. Go Running Tours is a worldwide um, service, I guess. You go on the Go Running Tours website, you book a run, you turn up in the city, and somebody turns up and runs with you and shows you bits of the city or takes you on a special run somewhere exciting. Um, and you get sort of a tour and a run at the same time. And if you want, you can have a lot of run, or if you don't, you can have a lot of tour and a little run. So you know how it is, Liz, because you're my backup. So
Mm-hmm.
if I don't turn up to run with you in Montreal, the
I
chances
do.
are that Liz will be turning up to run with you in Montreal. So the trouble is with running these tours in Montreal is you don't get many tours in winter because
Mm-mm.
nobody wants to go out in the dark and the cold and the
I
even
don't
though
blame them.
even though sometimes, well, I know you because you're a hot weather person, but even though sometimes it's quite beautiful, you do have to wear a lot of clothes.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's all just a preamble to say somebody booked a tour with me a couple of weeks ago. An English girl called Hannah Vickers. I hope she doesn't mind me name dropping her. And if she's listening to the podcast, there you go, Hannah. You're now famous with Running Book Reviews podcast. So anyway, she's English, so she's used to dark and rainy and stuff like that. Just insulted a whole nation, but there we go. So off we went, and we went for a run. It was sunny, but it was quite cold. So we got to the top of Mount Royal, where we were going to look out on the city from the top of Mount Royal, and it was quite cold. So I said, "Oh, look, the cafe in the chalet at the top of the mountain. It's open. Come on, let's go in, and I'll buy you some coffee." And she says, "Oh, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I like hot chocolate." So we bought hot chocolate, and we just sat down and in the middle of the run, we just sat down and had hot chocolate. And I thought, this is kind of what it's about, really. When you go out for a run, you should make the run fun, no matter what your circumstances are. If you're finding it a bit rough, if you can make it fun and enjoyable, you can get your run in and have a good time and not stress, not sort of mentally wear yourself down, but in fact, mentally build yourself up and get your run at the same time. So we had hot chocolate, and then we were all smiles and happy, and then it was all downhill from there because we were running from the mountain downwards.
Oh yeah,
So
that's the best part of the mountain is the part where you're running down.
and she enjoyed that so much that she booked with me again 2 weeks later because she was in town again. So she booked me with me again, and she said, "Oh, um, could we go somewhere different?" And but she said it would be good if we could stop for hot chocolate again. That was obviously the memorable thing of the event. So we did. We went somewhere else and had hot chocolate. So just to say, you need to build fun into your running, and that's what it's really all about. At our level of performance, you're not going to win gold medals and stuff. Um, you're going to try hard, but in between trying hard when you're in the off season, and we're kind of in the off season now, you need to keep your base built and have fun doing it. So, hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope listening to us chat about running can keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new and take that next step forward. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to reminisce today about the books we've read since our last recap way back in June.
So I guess the first book on the agenda is the one that's the furthest away in our memory because it would have been sometime around May, June that we read it. And that's The Humiliation Tour by Jeff Recker. So this one was the fiction novel where there were sort of like two stories in one and they merged at the end. And we don't want to give it away, although like there was quite a bit of detail in the podcast.
Yeah.
But
it's basically the story of Billy. Well, his nickname's Billy Balls for quite an obvious reason. When you read the book, I'll let you read the book and find out. That sort of happens in 1993, and then there's a simultaneous story that runs of a guy called Jimmy Flynn, which happens in 1933 during sort of Prohibition in between the wars, and he's sort of running errands for bootleggers who are doing illegal alcohol and sort of pseudo mafia type things. So there's two stories running, and they both basically involve towards the end running the Boston Marathon for different reasons and different purposes. And in fact, the stories link eventually, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said, and using different fueling strategies.
Oh, very different fueling strategies, yes. I remember that now. In 1933, there wasn't dope testing and you could try anything basically. So that was kind of a bit over the top, but quite entertaining.
I really like this book. Like, I don't read a lot of fiction, but I thought this was a great story. And I kind of liked how they had like the 30s reality and the 90s reality. I mean, like, you know, I was a teen in the 90s, so I would have been kind of like, that was very familiar to me, but I didn't have any idea sort of what it was like growing up in the 30s. So that was
you're going to say I was a teen in the 30s, are you?
I wasn't, no, because you're not old enough for that. I can still do math, Alan. I'm not like at the end of a marathon where then I might think that maybe you were born in the 1900s. Whenever. Like, I don't know, like, because my math skills get thrown out the window. But no, I'm like perfectly coherent. So I know you weren't a teen in the 30s for sure. But I was just saying that, you know, it was kind of nice because like his reality was kind of familiar. The book was, although the book is very recent, it wasn't placed in a recent time, which I think the author did because he, you know, he's less familiar with growing up, you know, with cell phones and TikTok and Strava, you know, so
didn't want to get into that much.
Yeah. And although he had to research for, you know, growing up in the 30s, I guess it's not that different in terms of technology. I mean, I guess it is, but and also the, you know, the substances that you can use during races were very different, but
for sure. Then there was a nice sort of running history. We've done some running history books in the past, and it was sort of to some extent a revisit of some of those eras. Like you know, running through history with that we did in the past.
Yes.
And Jeff Recker was a very cool guy.
He was, yeah.
His own book and self-published, and very nice to talk to.
Yeah, and the amount of effort he put into this book, I mean, just must have been huge because he had to research and you know, he got it edited and, you know, got people to read it before he published. And I mean, just, you know, so much work, basically, I guess all the work that every other author does. It's just that he kind of had to figure it out on his own, mostly.
Yeah, so we can't talk that much about it because we'd sort of give it away a little bit. But it's kind of a bit wacky in parts, funny, pretty serious, some bits of love story, some bits of tragedy. And it's all running based and sort of culminates in Boston marathons in different eras.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're into that stuff and you haven't read this yet, go out and grab a copy.
I think even for a younger reader, like a teen that's running cross country right now, or just was, because I guess the season just finished. I think that, you know, they would enjoy the story too. Because it's basically like most of it is about, you know, two young people, but just growing up in different eras, but they're young and they're runners. And they, you know, in Billy's case, he leaves running and comes back to running, which I thought was great because I think that probably happens a lot. I know it happened to me. Like I left running and came back to it later. So I don't know. I saw myself in that story.
I don't know about you. It's kind of cool because we don't get a chance to read many fictions. We're all into training and serious stuff and how do you do this and how do you do that. So it was good to sort of just go on a flight of fantasy for a while.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And because, you know, Christmas is coming up, I guess the last thing I would say is, you know, someone could consider this as a gift for
Hmm.
a family member that's a runner, or a friend that's a runner that you just want to get them
Yeah.
a little something.
That they haven't got on their shelves already.
Yeah, exactly. Because, if they're proper book nerds, then they might have all the books already.
You probably think everybody's a book nerd just because you are. And
Yeah,
you're
I
such a book nerd. If somebody bought you this, you'd say, "Well, I already have one, but it's really great now. I have two. That's excellent." And most people will go, "You go, oh wow, cool. If one is good, two must be even better."
even better.
So you want to do "You Only Faster" by Greg McMillan?
Definitely. So
Okay.
I guess this was more of a typical, training type book, but it was a little bit
Hmm.
of a different take where Greg actually shows you how you can take a training plan that you get from somewhere that's a static training plan, like, the ones you get online, or maybe you buy it online, and then you can tailor it to your needs. And I actually love this idea. And the one thing
Yeah.
that I came away with that I really liked was
Hmm.
how he would one of the first steps was to highlight the workouts, and mark them as like your strength or your weakness. And then later he tells you, well, for the weaknesses, you want to make sure that you don't have too many of them in a row, because they tend to be the workouts that for you personally, they
Hmm.
might take more out of you. So
Yeah.
it'll take you longer to recover. But then also they're like the most demoralizing. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
how he said it. He said it in
Yeah.
a proper way. That's,
They're the least encouraging.
yes. And so, also mentally, it's, you need to do some of them, but you don't need to beat yourself over the head with them.
Yeah, I guess the sort of personal evaluation of your running style was, if you're an endurance runner, are you more of a speedster or are you more of an endurance monster? And then based on that, which runs would you favor and which runs would you find difficult? And then based on that, what would you do with that in terms of working your strengths? But you to some extent, you can leave them later in the program. Um, and you working your weaknesses, be careful about doing too many and getting discouraged, but basically build them a little earlier so that you can strengthen them up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more to it than that, and a lot more nuances than that, but that's kind of where it basically comes from initially. Greg McMillan's very famous for the McMillan pace calculator, which is part of this book as well. One of the things I found fascinating was that, over the years, he's built a lot of data to show that the pace calculator works. So you can take one pace at one speed, one distance, and then work out your other paces for your other distances, and that it kind of works. But he mentioned that the introduction of super shoes messed up his calculator,
Mm.
because basically super shoes arrived and just everybody became a bit faster or a lot faster, um, by acquiring these shoes. And then suddenly the data on his calculator is kind of not as applicable.
Yeah.
And that he's had to sort of recover the data, get new data and recover his calculator due to the advent of super shoes, which you kind of would never have thought about.
Yeah, it just means that if you're running a race in super shoes, but you don't train in super shoes, well, now all your training paces are going to be too fast for your fitness.
Yes, they are. Because if you take your race pace off your super shoes.
Mm-hmm. Because, like, I only race in my super shoes. Like, I don't train in them,
Mm.
for a few reasons, but
I would say
I
I
train
might
in
do
them
a
sometimes.
couple of sessions, like sort of speed A sessions.
Yeah. But I'll have some other plated shoes like on the side that I kind of used for that occasionally. But yeah, I do a lot of my training in like regular shoes, and especially in the winter. So I guess that's why I find the paces that McMillan's calculator gives, they're like kind of
Too
hard for me.
aggressive for
So
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
oftentimes in training, I have a hard time hitting those. And I just feel like all the training is hard instead of there being like a medium hard and a really hard. And, there's like, it just seems like everything's hard.
But also, it seems that you're more of an endurance monster than a speedster, so you would probably need to adjust anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm actually like, I'm somewhere in between, but in a strange way, because I tend to like the 5K session training, and I can hit those paces. But if you give me like a really long marathon pace run in a workout, I have a hard time with that usually. Like tempo runs.
Or a lactate threshold run, like a decent
Yeah,
distance lactate threshold run, 30
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, exactly. I have a hard
Yeah.
time with those. Like, I mean,
I
20
remember
minutes, those
us,
are okay,
we
but
always dreaded those. Oh
oh
no,
gosh,
we've
yeah.
got that coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why this year we broke them up into intervals, like instead of doing a straight 8K or a straight 10K of lactate threshold, we broke them into like 2 parts or 3 parts or whatever we did. I can't remember exactly, but we
So, a little book with a red cover.
yeah.
And the reason it has a red cover is just like the reason we're all wearing red jumpers now, for power.
It's small but mighty. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the cover looks really simple, but I mean the content is great in this book. So I guess we should move on to one of the ones that you really liked. I mean, we both really liked, but the Do Hard Things by Steve Magness.
Yeah.
And this was basically all about doing hard things, but about our definition of toughness. And Steve Magness kind of breaks down at the beginning sort of what society's general understanding of toughness is, where it's more like you're just tough at all costs.
Like macho,
Yeah, but
commando,
exactly.
type stuff.
And true toughness is not that. It's actually, he divides it into 4 pillars. And so, like, the first one is embrace reality. Second one is listen to your body. Third one is respond instead of react. And the fourth pillar is transcend discomfort. And transcend discomfort is probably like what society thinks
Yeah.
that toughness is like just that last one, but it's
So he kind of
actually
puts that
not.
at the end, like do all of these things first, get your mindset right, and
Yeah. Understand your body and what it's telling you, because being tough is sometimes it's backing off. It's not always
yeah.
just push through. So, but you have to understand the nuance that you're getting
To some
from the
extent,
cities.
I felt there was sort of echoes of the comeback quotient
Mm-hmm.
in there when we read that. A book by Matt Fitzgerald, who was talking about elite people and their ability to make comebacks. He talked about them being ultra realists. I think that was his term, ultra realists. Steve Magness sort of started with that, embrace reality.
Yep.
Don't overestimate what you can do, but don't underestimate it either. Take time to get really conscious about embracing the reality of it, not be frightened of your mental picture of it. Deal with the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of springs from there. Steve's sort of a super well-informed chap, so he's got lots of backups in terms of research, and so he talks about a lot of things that sound soft in Do Hard Things, soft
Mm-hmm.
skills, but in fact they're backed up by a lot of information and research. He's not just kind of winging it in terms of saying, prepare your mind. He'll actually give you a study that backs up whatever he he has to say, which as a scientist, I value that.
Mm-hmm. One of the messages in the last section was like, you shouldn't just try and be tough for its own sake. It's really you need to find reasons, which is, I guess, that's going into like, knowing your
Your
why for
why.
doing things.
Yeah.
But it also kind of means like, being tough in a certain domain doesn't mean that like you need to be tough in everything you do. Sort of like, okay, so if you're tough, let's say in sports where you can grit it out, like doesn't mean that you need to be gritty and endure everything that's difficult in life.
Yeah.
Like I think it really shows that you need to pick your battles, because like if you look at all of these pillars, I mean, it would be impossible to apply all of those to everything in your life. But at the same time, I think like they will spill over. If you develop toughness and grit in running, then obviously you're gonna react differently in all the other things you do. But it doesn't mean you'll have like the same level.
Yeah, and to some extent, you need to save your mental energy for when it's going to really count.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I was talking with my daughter earlier today, and we were talking about racing to finish and not dropping out. And I was reminiscing about my quite abysmal effort at the Quebec Mega Trail last year, when you left me at the last aid station because I was how,
Yes.
I was a bit running on empty, and
Yeah.
I came in and then spent an hour in the med tent afterwards.
Yeah.
And I gutted it out at the end, and we were talking, and I was saying, a few people said to me, "You should have just dropped out. You shouldn't, at your age, you shouldn't be risking your health."
Of course, that's the wrong thing to say to
and-
Alan at your age. Like, you never start a sentence with that.
Whatever, yeah, but people from the outside fear for you a little bit. But I knew how I was feeling inside, and I knew I was just bonking basically, and it was just a question of how kind of nauseous I would feel for how long, and just to work it gradually along, walk a bit, jog a bit, walk a bit, try to eat, try to keep something down, and just get to the end.
Yeah.
And why would I do that? Because I'm interested in telling myself that I'm the kind of guy who can gut it out when it gets tough, and I'm the guy who can keep it going when the going gets tough. I'm the guy who does the thing that he says he's going to do. I'm the guy who adjusts his reality to the circumstances, and doesn't throw everything away.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you sort of program yourself to be more tough.
I mean, I just have something to say about that, because I think that, like, okay, yes, like, I don't think you should have dropped out, because, I know that you can finish, and I know that you can dig deep. I just think that what you maybe need to learn is, like, maybe you don't need to dig as deep, because I saw you coming in and you were really forcing yourself to run it in, and I don't know from how long, but I think that probably it was like from a few K that you were trying to run it in, and I feel
was just from around the corner.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you like walk the last 10K?
I would say out of the last 10K, I probably walked 7 of them.
Oh, okay.
I did little jogs.
Okay.
Come on, you're going to be here for a long time if you don't get moving. Let's try and jog a little bit, see how it feels. Oh, it doesn't feel very good. Okay, let's walk a bit more. And I would kind of do that. So
okay, because I saw you jogging in, and then get whisked away to the medical tent, and I was like, why did you have to like run it in? You could have just walked it in and still finished. You would have had the same thing. You would have finished, but I guess you did that. So
I only jogged at the end because there were people cheering me, so I felt
you felt like obliged. Okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing if I was at the end and people were cheering for me. I would have been like, okay, I got to give them something to cheer for.
From letting the teams down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was part of the essence of Do Hard Things by Steve Magness.
And I guess we learned a lot about toughness is the takeaway from that, and what it really means. So I think it's a great book for every runner, because it's pretty eye-opening.
Moving on.
Yep.
Born to Run 2 by Christopher McDougall and Eric Orton.
Yeah.
Quite cool, because we've had Chris McDougall on a couple of times, so it was good. It's like getting back in contact with an old friend. And even though how relatively famous Christopher McDougall is, because he wrote Born to Run, the most popular running book ever written.
Yeah.
That he's going to, when you get in touch with him, he's going to come on and talk with you, because he's kind of your buddy, and that's what your buddy does. So that was really cool.
And they both came. Eric was there too, so that was really good. And Yeah, so Born to Run 2, it's not a continuation of the story in Born to Run. It's more like a training manual for Born to Run.
Yeah, sort of how did Chris McDougall get ready to do the run that he did in Born to Run, and what sort of training aspects does he value? And Eric being his coach.
Yeah. And it was cool because they're obviously, because, Christopher McDougall always finds a way to get stories into everything. So there were definitely stories along the way, because some of the characters, you kind of found out what happened to them. So that was pretty cool, because it's a decade later. I mean, a lot happens in a decade. But I guess I'll just say that I think like some people are turned off by the minimalist running thing. As much as it was, a trend like 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit more now.
Yeah.
Now it's like completely the opposite. And I would say that like the book is not about minimalist running as much as it is about building a strong foundation, which includes like foot and ankle strength. So
Yeah.
although to do that, then the exercises a lot of times will be barefoot, or like they will say to do things like barefoot strides in the grass and things like that.
The
But
purpose of that is to sort of build your ligament strength and your
yeah,
proprioception and all good things that are scientifically proven to be useful to you and work better when you're more contacted with the ground.
exactly. Yeah. So I think because I know on social media, when you see Christopher McDougall and Eric Orton, and they're Born to Run to sort of Instagram, like there's a lot of posts that they're affiliated with Zero Shoes, which is like a minimalist running brand. But the book is, I mean, yes, it talks about running in something that alters your running gait as little as possible. But I would say that anyone can benefit from the book, because it's more than that. It's got exercises. And actually, I would say that if you're either you just finished your goal race and you don't know what to do next, or if like you're injured or you've been slightly injured during your buildup, but your race is done, and you're kind of wondering what to do for recovery. I mean, maybe one of the things that you do is you focus. There's like a 90-day sort of training plan, which involves all kinds of movements and things to try and get you running.
Yeah, not just running, but also strength and mobility training, nutritional programs, a sort of holistic type of program.
Yeah, so I think people can maybe benefit from that if they feel like they want to shift focus for a little while, being in off season, and maybe like rebuild their running from the ground up. So that's kind of what I got out of this. In terms of like what we got out of it and integrated into our own training, it was we did some rock lobster sessions.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what that
You're
is,
covering all my
Alan.
notes here, Liz.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
Go
good.
ahead.
We're obviously all of one mind. Tell us
Yeah.
about what's the rock lobster drill, Liz. Tell us about it.
So you play Rock Lobster by B52 is the group,
God, she
because
doesn't know.
I don't,
She's
you know
too
what,
young.
this was the first time I'd ever heard this song. But you can just go on Spotify and type in Rock Lobster. It's gonna bring up a song, and that song, what you do is it's gonna be the cadence of your drill, and you're gonna have your backup against something that's not going to allow you to kick back with your feet. So we used, because we were doing this outside in the parking lot before the run, so we used Alan's car.
We use cars. Yeah.
Yeah, not just Alan's car, I guess everybody's cars. And you just run in place to the cadence of Rock Lobster. And it's actually kind of fun because you're listening to music, and then you look really ridiculous to anybody that's walking by. But if you're in a gang, it's pretty funny.
Also, if you can do it, take your shoes off. So if you've got some grass or you're indoors against a wall, take your shoes off. And the cool thing is that you go automatically into a good form because you're going at the cadence speed, and you got your shoes off. You go into a barefoot type of form where you plant, especially if you can't kick your legs back, you plant correctly. So, and it's a super fun way to do some form practice. Do that just before you go for a run. Then you've got the song playing in your head, and it reprograms your form, your cadence, and your foot movements.
Yeah,
pretty neat. The other thing I took from Born to Run 2 was I've now started doing my strength in the gym when we go to do strength work. I've started doing my strength work in bare feet.
Okay.
Basically, instead, I take my shoes off. I'll do them in socks or in barefoot. So when I'm doing one leg Romanian deadlifts or something like that with a dumbbell, I'll be doing it in bare feet. So I get the sort of planting of the bare foot and the proprioception. When I'm racing, I'll still wear super shoes because you go faster.
Well, exactly.
And racing is about trying to go fast.
Yeah, there's no messing with that.
But when you're doing strength work, you're not trying to go fast. So why would you? It's your chance to get the extra benefit of working in bare feet.
Yep, exactly. Should we go on to Personal Best Running by Mark Coogan and Scott Douglas?
Yep. Well, a couple of things that I got out of that. I mean, there's lots and lots of good training advice and also training plans and programs.
Yeah, for everything from the mile to the marathon, it's pretty much a gold mine. Like if you want to train for years to come, like you could just get this book, and there's a whole bunch of. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Daniel's running formula because he also had his philosophy, but then also a whole bunch of plans from I think it was 800 meters.
I think this is a bit more modernized. What I liked about Mark and Scott is Mark Coogan. He's a superb coach. I think he coaches. Well, I know he coaches the New Balance team in Boston, and so he knows how to coach. But he doesn't know lots of the theory around why he's doing it and what research it's based on. He just knows it's good and he needs to do this, and so he has Scott. So he has Scott, who's sort of the academic who sort of knows the stuff, and then they combined. What impressed me about Mark Coogan was how he's an elite team coach, like one of the best teams in the USA, but he's actually, seemed pretty laid back, like quite sort of relaxed and caring. We've done the story to death probably now about Salazar and Nike.
He's like the opposite.
He's like the exact
Salazar,
opposite.
Nike.
Yeah. The first thing that he came in with was 10 weeks of solid B+ running is much better than 4 weeks of A+. So don't try to A+ all your training all the time. What you're going for is to be able to do something that you can maintain, because consistency trumps high-end quality.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing from an elite coach, where you'd think, they'd be pushing, like getting every little inch out of everything.
Yeah. But no, he doesn't.
And the fact that as well, the other thing that impressed me, that I found like, wow, was the environment he tries to create with his team. So he has a group, and I think he treats endurance running as a team sport from that point of view in terms of training and how training works. I mean, we sort of have come to understand that because we've been on this 3-hour marathon training program of various degrees for ages, and we've done it together. And I think one of the things we've appreciated, I hope you've appreciated, I've certainly appreciated, is being together and having, an accountability buddy and a training person to discuss with. One of the things he said during our talk on personal best training is when he gets new people into the team, he will only take them if the rest of the team say that they're good and they want them.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because he
doesn't want to ruin the team dynamic.
Exactly. Yeah. And he has a whole section on the impact of your training environment, and what he means by environment is, the people that you surround yourself with, and and not just, I mean, obviously there's also environment like facilities you can train at, or if you can go to altitude and all those things, but those for most of us are not really anything we can change, but we can change sort of our environment, like the people that surround us, from people that don't encourage us to people that do encourage us, or people that we like. Actually, I think this is what he says, something about surrounding yourself with like people whose company you like. And that seems to be an important thing for him, which is not really anything that is mentioned very often, but it's something that I think a lot of runners can sort of relate to, because we all do that. We have our running buddies. I know a lot of people run on their own, but once you start running with buddies, it's like, I don't know, it's different. I mean, it's fun to go and meet your friend after work and get your run in, and even sometimes you don't feel like it, but by the end, like, you're both like pretty happy about what you did, and just have someone to bounce ideas off of, even if it's about training or life or whatever.
I mean, last night I was feeling like, don't really fancy this much. And I was just sort of jogging along. And you and Andre, your husband, sort of came up behind and said, and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're going to do some strides." So I thought, okay, I'll be in that. And by the end, I was feeling like quite energized and quite sort of quite up.
Yep. You were looking pretty bouncy by the
end.
I
was popping along. Oh, this is not so bad.
Yeah. And so there was one quote that I had written down from the book that I think is a good message to maybe all of our listeners. And it was from the beginning section of the book. So it said, lots of adults who didn't run in school automatically gravitate towards long road races because they think that they're not fast, but can keep going. Odds are that many people in the marathons are more genetically suited to shorter races. You don't know if you don't try. And I guess I wrote this quote down because I felt like that is really the case in, a lot of other runners that we run with, but also in runners I've coached, is, sometimes it's just always about, well, can I, like, okay, so I did 5K, now can I do 10? And now can I do half marathon?
Yeah.
But like, you don't need to progress that quickly. And then, maybe you do progress that quickly. Maybe you did do a 5K and then you did a 10K and then you did a half marathon and then you did a marathon. But now come back to the 5K and see how much better you've gotten.
Yeah.
Because it's, it's beneficial to train for different distances, basically. Is the message.
Yeah. And one of the things I see is, I don't know whether you agree, is that people in clubs don't think about how running a little bit really fast. They kind of go, oh, I was on the couch last year and now I'm running a 5K, and it becomes like 5K or 10K. It becomes a distance game. Progression's measured by,
can I go further?
Yeah, can I go further? Whereas I rather think if they injected a little bit of strides or, hard, fast, tiny portions within their week, that they would probably progress much better. When they went up to 10K, they'd be faster.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I think that's sort of the issue that people that run by themselves get into, because in a club you do end up having trainings, and so you'll do like a certain amount of variety depending on like whatever was programmed in the training.
Somebody will give you some intervals at some stage.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like eventually you'll kind of end up doing them whether you like it or not, because you're showing up to these practices. But I think when you're a runner that's always run on their own and maybe never been part of a club, maybe you started running for health reasons and you just like it took over your life, kind of like it has taken over ours. And so I think those are the people that maybe like there, and with reason, your benchmark just becomes, well, now can I go further? Like, can I go, can I do 10 and marathon and ultra marathon? And now can I, what else can I, how much further can I run? And nothing's wrong with that. It's just that you might actually continue enjoying your long runs if you try and come back to some of those shorter runs, because I think also sometimes like it wears you down, to always have to be better than your previous benchmark. I think sometimes you just have to.
And I guess at this point I would put a plug in for park run. We all went and did the local park run 5K a week ago, and it's kind of changing it up. And the style of park run is it's very low key and it's free. If you don't know what it is, type parkrun, one word.com into your computer and have a look. Everyone in the UK knows what it is, but if you're in North America, you might not.
Yeah.
It's basically a free 5K organized by volunteers, and they're every week. You can go along and test yourself. Or the nature of it is it's very low key, and you can just go along and not test yourself if you want. But it's a great way of changing it up.
Yeah, and maybe if you always run by yourself, it's a great way to go like run with other people and maybe meet other runners.
Yeah, there's always coffee and chat afterwards.
Oh, there's always coffee afterwards?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't know
Well,
that. That was my first one, so I didn't know that was a
so
thing.
far I've run 11 park runs in 3 different countries, and there's always been coffee afterwards.
Oh, well, that's nice. Okay.
I think that's just people being sociable. I don't think it's in the rules that you have to have coffee afterwards. But some of the people are so laid back, you could almost have coffee during.
Okay. Are we on to the next one?
Yes, we are. Get to the Line in the Best Shape Possible by Eoin Everard. So what did you get from this, Liz?
Okay, so I guess I'll just summarize it a little bit. It's a lot of our articles about topics that runners have questions about. He divides it into, like lifestyle, run training, supplemental training. And I guess one quote I had written down, so I'll just start with that, is a goal is a dream with a timeline. I love that.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that was like, yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's really what it is. But what I got out of it was there was a section he talked about how athletes stay healthy, because he talks a lot about like being consistent, sort of like some of the other books, being consistent. That's what's going to define if you're going to progress. And so obviously staying healthy means that you're going to be more consistent, and the elites are really good at staying healthy. And it's a little boring how they do that, because it's like good nutrition, get help from a trainer,
drills.
Yeah. You need to, get to the gym and do, gym work so that you can make sure that you stay healthy in that way. Recruit positive social support, which we actually kind of talked about, eh?
I'm going to get unrecruited by everybody. Is that all you got? Is that the best you can do? Oh, dear me. Do you need one of those old age people walkers? I'll provide you with one. This is my encouragement usually that I provide for people.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you make them laugh, then that's always good.
That's the idea.
Laughter is supposed to be
that's the idea.
Better than medicine or whatever.
Something that Owen was very, very keen on was runners Pilates, which he sort of developed a little sub branch of Pilates himself, and he gives classes and demos. So he had that. And the other unique thing that he had was some sort of back belt, a belt for your back. So you have back strength and back health. I think he says during our podcast, I kind of cheated on the book because I took all the articles that I had written for various magazines and newspapers and things and compiled them into a book. But having said that, he then offered people the book for free if they'd go to his website and sign up on his website.
Mm-hmm.
They could have a free download. I thought that was pretty cool. I know some people from our club availed themselves of that.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
enjoyed the
it's great.
podcast and then went and got themselves a copy of the book. And it's got diagrams and it's a good visual learner's book as well as not,
Mhm.
words to read.
And because it's like articles, you don't really have to read it cover to cover. So
No, you can read like
don't really-
5 pages and you've got a whole thing
Mhm.
self-contained, whole aspect.
Yeah.
You can read the next one next time you want to visit, which was pretty cool. I liked Owen a lot. He was very dynamic and had a fantastic Irish accent.
Yes. Yes. And obviously very passionate about running. Like
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
everything had like some relationship to helping runners. So
And extremely quick
that was
himself,
great.
I think. He's like a sub
He is.
15-minute 5K runner, like
Yeah.
a national class. I think he'd run for Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. So he's fast.
he walks the talk.
Yep. He knows what he's talking about. Next, On the Run, published by Gestalten.
Oh, you didn't sound very sure when you pronounced
Yeah,
Gestalten.
I figured that you were gonna correct me because it should be Gestalten or something like that. I don't know.
I've actually got no idea.
Okay.
It's a German publishing company. Given that it's German, I think it would be Gestalten.
Okay,
But-
good. I got it right on the
But I'm
first try.
guessing, yeah, you got it right. But you didn't sound like you thought you got it right, though, did you?
No,
So
I
the
didn't. No, I should have like how they.
Gestalten. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was bracing myself for the onslaught of correction by Alan.
That would have been fun. We're getting to know each other now.
Yes.
We have funny words. I'll let you have a go, even if I know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Yep. You just let me walk right into the trap.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll say that, since this episode is coming out in December.
Yeah, pre-Christmas.
This one is like a Christmas gift.
Absolutely.
Quality book because it's a hardcover and it's got all kinds of races in it.
Yeah.
It's similar to another book that we had reviewed in the past that was also kind of like the same idea, coffee table book. It's not the same races. So even if you have that other one, you can have both because On the Run is
it's very cool. It's got a lot of good photographs as well, a lot of big color photographs of different stuff. And I think, as you say, it's a coffee table book. It's a great gift for people. And it's just packed full of inspiration.
It is.
Look at all the different runs of different types and different distances and different places. And you just go, oh, that's nice. Oh, no, that's better. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's quite cool. Oh, hang on. I've done that one. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And so I'm gonna tell you what I wrote about this book, and then I'm gonna tell you what happened after I wrote about it and I went on the internet. Okay. So I wrote that this book really made me want to do a race that was in it called the Grand to Grand Ultra, which is 275 kilometers in 6 stages over 7 days. And I talked about it in our podcast episode. That was the one I had chosen.
I remember. It starts like on the Grand Canyon and then it ends in somewhere in Utah.
But it's all the like beautiful like red rock scenery.
Since you've gone to Moab, you're absolutely in love with this.
I'm so in love with that that whole area. So and it's self-supported, so they do give you water, but you need to carry your own food. It's like Marathon des Sables, like kind of style where you have to carry your own calories, but they will bring you water. They'll give you water along the route. And
just a small pause here.
Yeah,
your pronunciation on Marathon des Sables is absolutely impeccable.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
fantastic. So if we don't know how to pronounce Gestalten or Gestalten, the
Yeah, at least,
pronunciation for Marathon des Sables
yeah, at least I got something good.
is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, okay, good. At least I got that right. I mean, I should be, okay with things that are French.
That's me
So
being encouraging. Okay, where were we?
So I was gonna say, I also wrote that if you wanted to do it with me one day, Alan, I promised that I could bring all the orange dinosaur stash that you'll need along the way.
Nightmare.
But maybe first we have to get you through the Quebec Mega Trail without going into the medical tents. And then we can maybe like revisit this discussion. So after I wrote that, I got a little sidetracked because that's what happens. And I went and I Googled Grand to Grand Ultra to go to their website. And I was looking at their website and their spectacular photos. And then I saw their section. There is a section that they had called, well, first of all, they have things like foot care, self-care, taking
how to survive, basically, rattlesnake avoidance.
Oh, okay. So basically they have a section called fauna. And in that section, there is a picture of a huge hairy spider. And basically it says scorpions and spiders are some of the critters you should be aware of during your time in the Arizona-Utah desert. And
so you're out then.
No,
Ixnay on the Grand.
No, I think so I think the pictures and going back there would still be appealing. I just need to do a lot of research on how to avoid big hairy spiders and scorpions. And maybe the trick is that, first of all, I won't be in the top runners. I just need to stay behind someone that's going to scare them all away for me. So I think.
But where do you sleep?
In a tent that they provide. In a sleeping bag that I promised to shake out before I get in.
Okay. So do you have a quick demo? This is Liz shaking her bag.
I'm gonna shake it like
and
this.
What does your face look like if a big spider drops out of your bag? Oh, you have to watch the video to work out what we're talking about here. Okay, so will you be sleeping in your own tent, or will you be sleeping in a shared tent?
So I didn't look into that much detail, but actually it would be really good if we were sleeping in a shared tent, because then I would be one of several, and so there would be less probability that the scorpion ends up in my shoes, and less probability that the spider ends up in my sleeping bag.
Say you were sharing a tent and I was one of the people you were sharing a tent with, okay? Sometime in the middle of the night, because you know me, I'm a bit like your husband, not quite as bad, but a bit like, sometime in the middle of the night, I'm going to have to get out of my sleeping bag to go outside to pee.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to get out of my sleeping bag. I'm going to unzip the tent. I'm not going to be very long, so I'll just leave it unzipped while I'm out there peeing.
Oh, no.
3 scorpions and 2 spiders will get in. I'll come back. I'll zip the tent back up so they can't get out. And I'll get back into my sleeping bag and go soundly asleep. Happy as can be.
I'll have to research if the sleeping bags are our sleeping bags, because if we have to bring our own, I'm going to buy one of those ones, that have the hood integrated and you have the drawstring that you can
So spiders can only get on your face.
Oh, yeah, that's not a very good idea. Okay. So what did you get out of this book, On the Run?
So On the Run does not contain any advice on spiders and any advice on, it's nothing to do, all this chat is nothing to do with On the Run. What I got out of that is I've gone off and I was saying, one of the things that I loved, I was saying on the podcast, one of the places that I love are the Blue Mountains in the west of Sydney, Australia. So I've entered a race called the 6 Foot Track Marathon, which runs through a lot of up and down and through the Blue Mountains in Australia. And I'll be doing that in March next year, assuming that I get my approval. But I've paid my registration, so I hope I think I got a preferred entry as an overseas.
I think if they take your money, then you're in.
I took all my money.
Yeah, they take it. That's a good sign.
So I'll do that. That's a one-day event, so you don't have problems with sleeping bags and other people opening the tent when you thought you were safe.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one of those inspirational things. And another thing that just happened just recently, and I was looking at all the photographs, was a run that I did in 2018, the Manaslu Trail Race in Nepal in the Himalayas. Just finished this year. So everybody's publishing their photographs because they only publish the photographs when they're running for the first day. Then they go into a Wi-Fi desert and a telephone desert because there's no connections for about 6 days. And then they emerge out of it, and then all the photographs come out.
That's amazing.
I'm connected to quite a few people and sites that have that, and that's a fantastically inspiring race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when you and Guillaume went, and like you were just beaming about it for a long time after. So,
we spent about a year talking about it. Just like, oh, how many socks are we taking with us? And,
what's the weight of the headlamp that we're bringing?
Yeah, we did. We actually researched. We worked out that we could get a headlamp that weighed 30-something grams. So we went and found one of those and bought it. And we need a power bar, but power banks are heavy. So how much power do we need, and how much will it weigh, and can we afford it in our 10-kilo limit? We spent a year just putting the kit together. It was a lot of fun. All adds up to a lot of money as well, though.
Yeah, I do remember that.
You need a sponsor, Liz.
Yeah. Well, or I need a long-term savings plan. That's probably more realistic than a sponsor.
You could get a sponsor for the event and then just get sponsors for all the parts, all the items of kit that you need. That would be excellent. And then you could go, here's our XYZ lamp that we're using, and here's our XYZ sleeping bag that we're using. That would be very cool, wouldn't it?
It would be very cool.
Even people who go like round the world and stuff like that have difficulty getting sponsors. So
yeah, it's hard. It's a hard.
Sounds great, but
yeah. So I guess we can move on to the next one, which was Run Healthy by 3 authors. And we had all 3 of them on the podcast, which is a lot of fun. It's Emmi, Aguillard, Jonathan Kane, and Allison Goldstein.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. That's like the biggest podcast we've had in terms of numbers of people in one podcast. Yeah. There's 5 of us.
Yeah.
Now I was thinking it'll be chaos because I have a tendency to talk over people. And I thought, it's going to be terrible. But actually it worked out really well.
I thought they were great. I thought it was great how like they, they knew why they were together. They were together for their skills like that each one had. And they kind of meshed it all together to create this book, which I thought was fantastic. And I particularly liked the first chapter because it described different tissues in the body and how they heal. It described in particular because I've had a lot of those like tendon things, like I had plantar fasciitis and I had the Achilles tendinopathy, and each one I had them for super long time until finally I did like excessive amounts of exercise and it healed finally. And in the book it describes kind of why, and it's because those tissues have less blood supply than like muscles, so they heal very slowly, and actually you need to load them but not too much, not enough to like you don't get like perfect healing by just resting forever. Exactly.
You have to work them a bit to encourage them to then strengthen, but of course you mustn't work them too much, and what is too much, and and it's a lot of like trial and error because it's like, oh, okay, well, if you
work them and then it's worse the next day, then I guess that was too much,
Or it
a lot of
feels a
that.
bit sore, so do you go again the next day? That's kind of tough. A brilliant thing in the book was the exercise finder table in the front. So once you've sort of read the book, you can then go back to the table and say, okay, I've got a knee injury, which is this type of knee injury. What exercises should I be doing to rehab? And it'll just point you to the exercises, which was very cool.
Yeah, I did like that. That was a great feature of the book. And also, you had the headings of some of the chapters were all like different types of injuries and different classes of injuries. So you could
yes, multiple ways you can mess up your hip, and then you can it didn't say that, but it's kind of that's what it meant. And then you could go and find out what the exercises were, but also a lot of practice and advice how not to get injured.
Yep. Which that's always good.
I would say that we've over the last, say, 2 years, we've both had problems, but we've been able to work through them.
Yeah.
I mean, this year I had a knee problem for weeks and weeks and weeks, but I managed to train all the way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the last time that I was really injured that I stopped and I had to miss a race was when we were supposed to do the Philadelphia Marathon in 2016. And I got plantar fasciitis like 2 weeks before, sorry. Because I had time to cancel my hotel without any penalty and I just didn't go to the race. Yeah, but that was the only time I was injured. That was like the first time I was really injured that I couldn't run. I had never had that experience. Yeah. And I really couldn't because I had plantar fasciitis in both feet. Just all of a sudden, out of the blue, just like popped up one day.
You're lucky you didn't have 3 feet. Otherwise, you'd have had plantar fasciitis in all 3 of the feet.
All 3. I swear. It was such a mysterious thing. But ever since then, I've had some issues, but they were issues that I guess I paid more attention. Whereas, I think the first time around, when you're never injured, you basically just figure that every soreness is just going to go away by itself because that's what it always does.
Yeah.
And so I think that I probably did have sore feet or sore arches for a while, but I didn't really think anything of it because I was like, oh, sore feet. Well, I'm running a lot. I'm training for a marathon. So that's normal.
Expect some soreness. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, then one day when it was so sore, I couldn't run a step. That was a new experience for me. So, yeah.
And if only you'd had this book.
If only I'd had this book, it would have been great. You know what? Yeah. If only we had this podcast before I got injured, I would have known so much more and I would have been so much more prepared to deal with it after, I think.
Maybe you'd have been injury proofed a little bit better as well.
Maybe.
I kind of rather think I am sort of much more injury proof now. That's not to say I'm not going to get injured because, I run on those dangerous places that are called trails sometimes, where they have. You
can meet wildlife there, and it could be.
There are tree roots.
Yes,
you could fall.
Yep. Like I have. Yep. Full face plant.
Well, you never face plant in trails.
Yeah, in the winter, but you didn't hear me because I fell and there was snow, so it was all.
What was that sound?
It was like
I don't know.
I was like,
where's Liz? I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually what happened last winter. It was so funny because then eventually I caught up to you guys and I'm just like, where were you? And I'm like, I face planted back there.
But that's fun. It's fun face planting in the snow.
Actually,
just laugh and get up.
I know, because you don't get hurt because the snow, except later in the winter when it's all icy. But no, this was fresh powdery stuff.
Yeah, thick
so
powder.
It was like
it's wonderful.
My foot sank, and then the rest of me kept going. So I just ended up falling over.
Yeah, what I find is we usually run on snowshoe trails, and the snowshoers have flattened it down where you're running. And so it's compacted, so it's solid, and you're running along and you think, oh, the grip's good and it's solid. But if you move 3 inches to your right where the
Mhm.
snowshoers haven't been. It's not solid. It's like
Mm-mm.
2 foot deep of snow. So your
Yeah.
foot just goes down. And then of course you can't get it up in time with your movement. You just face plant, in you go.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. And I think anyway, I felt like I was going pretty fast. So I felt like I also flew a little bit, like into the
Oh, it would have been fun to have the video of that.
There's no video evidence. Too bad. You would have
We have
had
a
to do
nice video of what the hell's this got to do with any of our books? But we have a nice video of
We're really sorry that we got this off track, but go ahead,
we
Alan.
should put it up on Buy Me a Coffee or something. A nice video of your husband Andre doing a trust fall, a snow angel trust fall, where he basically just is standing and then he just falls backwards.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah.
bend or anything. He just
No.
falls like a trust
Yeah.
fall
Mm-hmm.
when you fall into people's arms and they catch you. Except he's caught by a
The
3
snow.
foot bank of snow, or
Yeah.
he just disappears basically. He just goes poof straight down. It's quite hilarious. I took a video of him doing it. It's quite hilarious.
We should post that somewhere.
Yeah, I should dig it out. And
yeah.
I'm sure it's still on my phone.
If ever you guys are listening to this episode and we haven't posted anything, then maybe you can remind us.
Send us a reminder, yeah.
Yeah. And on to the next book, Run Elite.
Run Elite by Andrew Snow.
Andrew Snow.
Yeah, this generated a lot of chat. This was generated a lot of discussion from our club members, people asking us about it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of interest, and also it was our longest ever podcast
episode. Yeah.
Andrew Snow's a one-man podcasting machine.
He is.
You just say, so talk to us about that running thing, and off he goes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Now you go off and get a cup of tea, maybe have a meal, a shower, come back, and he's still enthusiastically telling you about it. Fantastic stuff.
And the book is fantastic. It's super well written, but it's very informative. It's like everything, like every sentence in that book, there's information and purpose. You know, it's it was a good read.
Andrew has a very I don't know, confident and dynamic character about him as well. He's done the Tony Robbins management course or whatever. About belief and inner confidence and all that sort of stuff. So he brings all of that to the running arena with him, which was sort of made for a different sort of approach.
Yeah. I think like the things that we got out of the book, and I don't know if you're going to echo this or not, but are the things that we want to try in our own running in our next marathon
like
build,
training?
Maybe. Yeah, so base training, which actually is what we're trying to do now, where we're running a lot of easy Ks and trying to just do some short hill sprints and some strides a few times a week. And once it's time to train for the next marathon, the other things that we thought we would try and incorporate are over distance long runs and sarcomere runs, which is basically like downhill running.
To stimulate your nervous system in a different way.
Yeah, and also reinforce your muscles. It's like a strength workout for your quads because your quads have to resist all that downhill running.
We've both started doing double days, even though we're in our off-season base training. Not because we're going for it necessarily, but what we're looking to do is keep our mileage up high without hurting ourselves, without it being too difficult. So easy. And one of the ways you can get easier miles in is to split your long run into, or your medium long run into 2 bits.
Yes. Yep. Much easier to do like 8K and 12K.
Yeah.
Than do one run
20K
of 20K, which is more of a grind.
And rather than doing like a tempo run, you know, when you're in the off season, like a tough run, a threshold run or something like that, we're just doing hill sprints, 8-second sprints
with long recoveries
or strides. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I liked about Andrew's podcast was concept of having the right mental attitude and uh, maybe being much quicker than you think you are.
Yeah.
And the story that he gave us, I think he gave us it on the podcast, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was in the book, was the James Bond concept.
Yes. I think you asked him about that on the podcast. So
Yeah.
he retold the story.
I've used it several times in several places with even not running things about mindset.
Okay.
Just
I've heard
for
you actually talk to some of our teammates about it. It's
yeah,
like, oh, well, let's say that you had to run a mile faster than you've ever run a mile. But then on the other end, it was to save your wife's life, because she was like
the,
hanging over a pot of
yeah,
something.
your James Bond and the evil villain has captured your spouse and is dangling them over a vat of acid, and you have to run a mile to switch off the switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I've heard you say that
so
to a couple of our teammates.
your motivation is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But let's do the concept again and say, okay, you're going to have to run a mile to switch off the switch, but it's not going to happen for 3 months. You have 3 months to get ready. So you have 12-week program to train for this. How are you going to train? What will your mindset be like? If it's raining, you're not going to go, oh, it's raining, I'll skip.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're going to go out if it's raining. And you're not going to go, well, I'm not sure. I don't like going to the gym to do strength work. So I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. I don't really need it. No, you're going to do everything that you can to give yourself the best chance. So it's just a kind of cool, fun way. A fun way. It's not serious, but it's a fun way of saying, shift your paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're doing everything you can, but you're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be smart about doing the extra stuff. You can't just do more and more, harder and harder. You've got to do it smarter.
Yeah. And also you need to balance it with some other things that are still important, like family and, most people have jobs. So you have to, you have to
Yeah, if that's
continue
your reality,
working.
you have to factor those things in.
Yeah.
You optimize for your personal situation.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if your spouse was dangling over the acid, you would just ignore all of those things, but we're
You
not
would.
in that
Yeah.
situation.
Exactly.
You'll have to earn some money to
Yes.
keep you fed, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you need to be fed in order to run fast. So, you kind of have to preserve all those other things in life that are still important.
Andrew was also very enthusiastic about nutrition, and
He
then
was.
you made the fatal error of asking him about it after we finished the podcast.
Yeah. Which
So,
resulted
like,
in a second podcast.
yeah, okay, that's a wrap. Okay, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Andrew, says Liz. Oh, Andrew, I was so interested in your comment about nutrition. And then off we go again. So
I
we ended up
know.
with about another half an hour of chat, which we published as a bonus track.
Mm-hmm. It was great. It was a good chat.
Very cool.
So next book,
Just
which
finish.
yeah, it's also the last one for today. And then
So that's quite appropriate that it's called Just Finish.
yeah, I guess it is appropriate. And it's by Sean Kaczmarski. So for this book, for those that haven't maybe listened to the podcast yet, it's a self-published book by Sean, and he talks about his own journey into running and also like how he kept himself motivated and just the normal everyday type of person perspective. And the reason he wrote the book was because he himself, I think, had read some books that are, spectacular transformation journeys, and they're motivational in their own way. But he said that what he thought was missing was just the if you find yourself in the situation like Sean is in, where you've been running for a few years, but you didn't lose 100 pounds, and you're not like Mr. Six Pack, and you're not running, I don't know, like
You're not going to get in
80
the
minutes.
Olympics. Yeah.
Exactly. And he's it's sort of like, but is it still worth it? And so basically, he describes his journey and also all of the reasons why it is worth it. And he talks about, he just talks about his experience being at the back of the pack and finishing a marathon. And for sure, like one of those experiences wasn't good. He didn't finish the marathon either, but because he didn't get to the cutoff on time.
Timed out. Yeah.
Exactly. But then he ends up running another one, and he ends up running with some of the volunteers in a race in Canada, and they end up running him in, and it was super emotional for him and a really great experience. So he kind of talks from his perspective. And at the end, he also, I guess what I came away with was just how much he realized that he benefited from running, even though he didn't have, socially, like the sort of dramatic transformation that sometimes we hear about and we read about, and like that books are made of. But he said running has absolutely been transformational for him because his mental health is better. His body composition has changed. Even though he says he didn't lose any weight, or maybe very little, he says like he feels that his body is different. And also just confidence. Like running has given him confidence because he's had the chance to set himself goals and achieve them. So
I remember him saying that,
great.
the thing that everybody kind of underestimates is the effect upon your mental outlook.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's true.
he kind of thought of himself as a bit of a couch potato, and with bad eating habits and a bad attitude towards exercise at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And mentally, he's sort of transformed,
Mm-hmm.
even though he's still coming at the back of the pack. And he hasn't moved the performance needle enormously. He's moved the achievement needle and used that to change his mental picture of himself.
Yeah.
I would say that, if you're the sort of person who's just started running or been running for a while or have joined a club and found that you're one of the slower or below average sort of runner, and you go, oh, I'm not that sort of person, I can't really do it like those other people, and you feel that maybe this is my place, or maybe this is not even my place, I shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
You should probably read this book, because
Yeah.
I think you would probably conclude that, well, if he's doing it, and he doesn't describe it, he doesn't dress it up, he describes it in all its difficulty and his difficulties with trying to do it, but doing it
Yeah.
nevertheless. You couldn't fail but to identify with him. He doesn't pretend to be a person that you could look at him and go, oh, I could never do that. You would look at him and go, okay, if he can do that, there must be a way for me to do that.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of his goal. He just wants other people to realize that they can do a lot more than they think they can.
Yeah, and you don't have to, try to be that guy who's out at the front of the club and is lapping you on the track, and you don't have to be that guy.
Yeah. Because also I think that what comes with sort of being the back of the pack is you have some, I guess, ideas that might not lead you to the best outcomes. So for example, when he talked about his he was going to do a marathon, he always did races that were very big, and the reason for that was because he said, well, there's a chance that I won't be last if there's a lot of participants. So when he signed up for this marathon and then found out maybe like I don't know, a few days or a few weeks before that it was going to be only like the marathon, the number of finishers is something like, I don't know, 600 or 700.
Yeah. I think he thought there was thousands and thousands, but they were spread over all the different runs, and the marathon only had a few hundred, as you say.
Yeah, and so he was initially kind of like scared because he's like, oh no, what did I do? Like maybe I can downgrade, maybe I can back out. But he didn't back out, only because he was traveling to Canada and his whole family was planning to be at the race. to see him finish. So that was the only reason he didn't back out. And then what ended up happening was that was actually one of the best experiences he's ever had in a race. So I feel like it's great because, that journey, he sort of explains that sometimes we have these ideas about, how like ourselves and where where our place is, but it's not really based in reality. And it was the same thing with joining a club. Like he does describe in the book that he tried to join a club, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned, Alan, he didn't really have I guess he preferred to run by himself with his headphones and stuff, which is also preference. But I think part of it is because he didn't sort of see himself as one of those other runners that was doing intervals and running fast and all this stuff. But he ended up having some friends that one of them encouraged him to do his first ultra marathon and helped him finish it.
Yeah, one of the fantastic things that's sort of embodied in the book is he tries his first marathon. He has a bad experience and he gets taken off the course because he hasn't made the time cutoffs. And that could have been the end for him because his confidence in himself was so tenuous and so small that could have been like the final straw. Oh, this is clearly not for me. This is a terrible experience. It's just reinforcing what I suspected about myself. But in fact, he manages to summon up the courage to go again.
Exactly.
Okay, circumstances push him towards having another go, but he accepts that and goes for it. And he has a wonderful experience. He's still at the back, but he has a different type of experience. And I think the message there is, failure is not permanent.
Yeah.
You can go again. If you fail at something, you shouldn't conclude that then this is not my place. Failure is a learning exercise or an experience exercise towards an objective. I mean, this is something we've learned in a very hard lesson fashion. Do not be an ultra realist and do not accept one failure as a statement about you as a person, as a fact of life that's never going to change for you. Failure is just it's just a spot, a point on a graph. It's not permanent. A new opportunity is in front of you. You get some learning from failure, you regroup, and you go again.
And that is a great way to end the podcast. Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. If you would like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you would like for us to review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Also, if you've been listening to us for a while and are wondering how you can help us out, there are a few ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends about us or share a link to your favorite episode with the running partner. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, if that's how you listen to your podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. We prefer 5, but if we only deserve 2, then that's okay as well. Although you should then send us a message and tell us why you only give us 2 stars so that we can, try and make it better. We are also on Buy Me a Coffee, and you can go on there and sometimes, we'll post little extra things. Also, if you follow us on Buy Me a Coffee, whenever we post something, we send out an email, so you'll get that. So go over there and sign up, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.